Have you ever felt like no matter what you do, your manifestations just aren't showing up? You follow all the advice. You visualize, you affirm, you meditate, and yet your reality remains unchanged. It's frustrating, isn't it? You begin to wonder if something is wrong with you, or if manifestation simply isn't real. What if I told you that the problem isn't with your techniques, your effort, or even your belief, but with something far subtler? Something that most people overlook entirely. It's not that you're manifesting wrong, it's that you're identifying wrong. When we talk about identification and manifestation, we're talking about the deep, almost invisible way you see yourself in the world. Most people assume that manifestation is about desire, about wanting something external. But in truth, manifestation is about being, the internal state from which every experience emerges. If your inner sense of self is misaligned with the reality you wish to create, no technique, no method, and no amount of effort can bridge that gap. You may be affirming abundance, yet inside you feel lack. You may visualize success, yet underneath you carry fear of failure. The universe doesn't manifest what you want, it manifests what you are. Consider the contrast for a moment. There is the old self, the self that feels stuck, that doubts, that waits for validation from outside. This self identifies with limitations, fear, and scarcity. It believes that life happens to it rather than being a mirror of its inner state. And then there is the new self, the self that knows it is a co-creator, that exists in alignment with its highest potential, that resonates with joy, abundance, and freedom. Identification is the bridge between these two selves. Until you consciously step into the identity of the self who already embodies what you desire, your manifestations will remain out of reach. Many people struggle because they chase external outcomes without ever noticing who they are being in the process. You might be working on manifesting a fulfilling career, a loving relationship, or financial freedom, but if your internal identification remains tied to stress, scarcity, or self-doubt, the universe responds accordingly. It's like planting seeds in barren soil. You may water them endlessly, but nothing grows until the soil itself is nurtured and transformed. Your identification is the fertile ground in which your desires can take root. Here's a subtle but powerful truth. Manifestation isn't about doing more, it's about being more. It's about shifting from a self that is desperate, fearful, or uncertain, to a self that is calm, aligned, and vibrationally matched with what it wants. This is where the magic begins. When you start identifying as the person who already is, the reality around you begins to shift in reflection of that identity. And it doesn't happen overnight, it happens through small, consistent moments of conscious being. Every thought, every feeling, every emotion you allow yourself to feel is a thread in the fabric of your reality. By the end of this journey, you will learn how to detect where your identification is misaligned, how to recalibrate it, and how to embody the version of yourself who effortlessly attracts your desires. This is the true art of manifestation. Not simply imagining what you want, but becoming the frequency from which it naturally flows. Once you begin to identify correctly, the resistance fades, the doors open, and life starts responding to the vibrational truth of who you are. Right now, as you sit and listen, consider this. Who have you been identifying as in your life? The version of yourself that doubts, fears, and waits? Or the version that knows, trusts, and already experiences the reality you wish to manifest? This question alone, when held in awareness, begins the subtle shift that can lead to profound change. Your journey toward effortless manifestation begins not with action, but with conscious self-identification. And that is where we will start today. Now that we've begun to understand that manifestation is less about doing and more about being, it's time to explore why most people struggle so deeply with this process. The truth is, it's not that manifestation is inherently difficult. It's that most people are identifying in the wrong way. They are unconsciously attaching themselves to patterns, beliefs, and emotions that block the natural flow of creation. Identification, in this sense, becomes the hidden obstacle that undermines every effort, no matter how disciplined or spiritual you think you are. When we speak of identification, we are speaking about the unconscious story you tell yourself about who you are. It's the lens through which you perceive life, the framework that shapes your every thought, decision, and emotional reaction. Most of us identify with our fears, our insecurities, and our limitations without even realizing it. We look at our reality and say, I am stressed, I am broke, or I am unworthy, and in doing so we cement that identity deeper into our subconscious. These statements, repeated over and over, become the foundation upon which our reality is built. And because the universe mirrors who we are being at every moment, we find ourselves trapped in experiences that feel frustrating, unfair, or impossible to change. Let's make this more tangible. Imagine two people both wanting to manifest financial freedom. Person A constantly worries about bills, fears scarcity, and doubts their ability to succeed. Person B, on the other hand, feels gratitude for what they already have, trusts in their ability to create, and imagines the feeling of financial abundance as though it already exists. The difference between these two individuals is not in the actions they take or the techniques they follow, it is in their identification. Person A identifies as someone who lacks. Person B identifies as someone who is abundant. The universe responds accordingly, reflecting back the vibrational reality of each identity. Misidentification often hides behind a mask of positivity. Many seekers practice affirmations, visualize vividly, and even meditate daily, yet they remain stuck because their inner identification doesn't match their outer practices. This is why so many manifestors feel like they are doing everything right and still see no results. The external techniques are like tools. They are only effective when the soil, the self, is fertile. If you are identifying as someone who is unworthy, anxious, or unready, no amount of affirming, scripting, or vision boarding will produce the shift you seek. The energy you radiate from your identification is what ultimately shapes your reality. Another subtle trap lies in the way people identify with external circumstances rather than their own inner state. We often say things like, "I'll be happy when I get that promotion," or, "I'll feel abundant once I earn more money." In doing so, we hand our power over to external conditions, allowing our sense of self to be defined by events that are outside our control. This misidentification keeps us in a cycle of chasing, struggling, and doubting. True manifestation begins when you recognize that your identification is not contingent upon outcomes. It is the source from which outcomes flow. By aligning with your desired identity first, your external reality naturally begins to transform. The emotional aspect of misidentification is equally important. Emotions are like the thermometer of your identification. When you feel anxious, frustrated, or doubtful, it is a clear sign that your identity is out of alignment with the reality you desire. Conversely, feelings of peace, joy, and anticipation indicate that you are vibrating in harmony with your true self. Most seekers overlook this subtle guidance system, chasing external results while ignoring the internal signals that reveal whether they are truly aligned. Learning to read and respond to these emotional cues is essential for shifting your identification in a way that supports effortless manifestation. Let's also consider the stories we inherit from childhood, society, and past experiences. Many of these narratives shape who we believe we are and what we deserve. Perhaps you were taught that money is hard to earn, love is conditional, or success is reserved for others. These stories become deeply embedded identification patterns, silently influencing every choice and action. To manifest from alignment, it's crucial to become aware of these inherited identifications and begin the gentle work of rewriting them from the perspective of the self who already embodies abundance, love, and freedom. The problem of misidentification is compounded because it often feels familiar and safe. Our subconscious resists change because it has learned to identify with patterns that feel normal, even if they are painful or limiting. This is why breaking free from misaligned identification requires conscious awareness, patience, and consistent practice. It's not about forcing change or pretending to be someone you're not. It's about gradually shifting your perception of self, allowing the version of you that is aligned with your desires to emerge naturally. Ultimately, the inability to manifest is rarely about a lack of technique or willpower. It is about an unseen mismatch between who you are identifying as and the reality you wish to create. Once you recognize this, a profound sense of empowerment emerges. You begin to understand that you are not a passive participant in life, struggling to make things happen. You are a conscious creator, capable of tuning your identity to the frequency of your desires. And as you step into this awareness, everything starts to shift. Your thoughts, your feelings, your actions, and the very reality that surrounds you. Now that we've explored the problem of misidentification, it's time to dive deeper into how identification actually shapes your reality. This is where the abstract concept becomes tangible, where science and spirituality meet, and where the true mechanics of manifestation reveal themselves. Most seekers assume that manifestation is about wishing, wanting, or doing, but the truth is far more profound. Your reality is a reflection of your internal state, and your internal state is determined by who you identify as at every moment. Think of your identity as a vibrational frequency. Everything you experience in life, your relationships, your career, your health, your abundance, is a mirror reflecting this frequency. When you identify as someone who is anxious, fearful, or lacking, your entire reality resonates with those vibrations. The universe doesn't negotiate or argue. It simply mirrors back what you are broadcasting. Conversely, when you identify as someone aligned, confident, and abundant, reality begins to shift to match that frequency. This is not wishful thinking. It is the foundational principle behind conscious creation. The moment you understand this, you realize that the key to manifestation is not acquiring something external but tuning your internal state. Let's break it down further. Imagine your life as a radio, constantly transmitting and receiving signals. If you are identifying with fear, scarcity, or doubt, you are tuned to a frequency that attracts experiences aligned with those vibrations. Changing the station without adjusting the transmitter, the identity, won't produce lasting results. Visualization, affirmations, or scripting are tools to help you shift frequencies, but they are effective only when your identification is aligned with the reality you seek. Without identity alignment, these practices are like shouting into the void. Energy is being spent, but no coherent signal reaches the universe. From a quantum perspective, this concept becomes even more fascinating. Quantum physics tells us that the observer influences the observed. Reality is not separate from consciousness. In simpler terms, the state of your inner being affects the manifestation of your external world. When you identify as someone who is successful, worthy, or abundant, your very observation of life begins to favor opportunities, insights, and synchronicities that reflect that identity. It's a subtle yet profound truth. Your perception is a creative act, and your identification determines the lens through which you perceive and thus manifest your life. Practical examples make this easier to grasp. Think of someone who desires a loving relationship. If their identity is rooted in self-doubt, fear of rejection, or unworthiness, they will unconsciously gravitate toward situations, people, and behaviors that reinforce that identity. They may attract partners who are unavailable or treat them poorly, not because they are cursed or unlucky, but because their internal identity resonates with those experiences. On the other hand, when they consciously identify as someone who is lovable, worthy, and already complete, their reality begins to reflect that truth. They notice different opportunities, attract healthier connections, and respond to experiences from a place of confidence and alignment. The shift in identity changes everything, from perception to action to the reality that unfolds. This process works similarly in other areas of life. Financial abundance, career success, health, and personal growth all begin with identification. If you identify as someone who struggles with money, who doubts their abilities, or who fears failure, your reality will mirror those beliefs. Yet, if you begin to see yourself as capable, resourceful, and abundant, your actions, decisions, and even seemingly random circumstances align to support that identity. This is why conscious self-identification is the hidden key to effortless manifestation. It precedes, supports, and shapes every outward result. Emotions are your most immediate feedback mechanism in this process. They act as a compass, showing whether your identification aligns with your desired reality. Feelings of stress, frustration, or impatience indicate misalignment, whereas joy, excitement, and peace signal resonance. Learning to observe and respond to these emotional cues is a critical skill. It allows you to detect misidentifications in real time and adjust your internal state before external circumstances solidify them. Manifestation is not a passive act. It's an ongoing, dynamic alignment of identity, emotion, and vibration. Subtle misidentifications often hide in daily habits and thought patterns. Perhaps you identify as someone who is always busy, not good enough, or never lucky. These small, repeated self-perceptions create patterns that are deeply ingrained in your subconscious, quietly shaping your reality without conscious awareness. This is why many manifestors experience temporary shifts or partial successes. They are glimpsing the frequency of their desires but returning to the old identity, which pulls reality back into alignment with previous patterns. Real transformation occurs when the new identity becomes consistent, dominant, and unquestionable in your subconscious. So, how do you begin to shift your identification consciously? The first step is awareness. Observe the stories you tell yourself daily. Notice the recurring thoughts and emotions that signal misalignment. Then, start to imagine, feel, and act as the version of yourself who already embodies your desires. This doesn't mean pretending or forcing. It means gently, consistently tuning yourself to the frequency of your aligned self. Every thought, word, and action becomes a thread weaving the fabric of your new reality. The power of identification also extends to your perception of challenges. When you identify as someone resilient, creative, and resourceful, obstacles no longer feel like threats. They become opportunities for growth and learning. This is why two people can face the same situation yet experience it completely differently. One sees limitation and struggle, the other sees potential and expansion. The difference is their self-identification. The universe responds not to circumstance, but to the vibrational essence of who you are being as you experience it. In essence, your identification is the seed, and your reality is the harvest. Misaligned identification produces struggle, resistance, and unfulfilled desires. Aligned identification produces flow, ease, and effortless manifestation. Once this principle is truly understood, a profound sense of empowerment emerges. You realize that you are not at the mercy of external events. You are a conscious creator, capable of deliberately tuning your identity to manifest the life you desire. And the more consistently you practice this, the more reality begins to mirror the vibrational truth of who you are becoming. Now that we understand how identification shapes reality, it's time to focus on the solution, the art of correct identification. This is where manifestation moves from theory into tangible practice. The key is not simply wanting or visualizing a different reality but consciously becoming the person who naturally lives in that reality. The moment you step into that identity, everything in your external world begins to align effortlessly. Correct identification begins with awareness. The first step is observing the stories, beliefs, and self-perceptions that have guided your life so far. Notice how often you identify with fear, lack, or limitation. Perhaps you catch yourself saying, "I'm not good enough, I'll never have what I want," or "life is always hard for me." These statements may feel harmless, but they form the framework for your reality. Identifying the old patterns is the first step toward shifting them. Awareness is the gentle spark that illuminates where misalignment lives. Once awareness is established, the next step is conscious choice. You must deliberately choose the identity that aligns with your desired reality. Ask yourself, who would I be if I already had everything I desire? How would I feel, think, and act? Visualization plays a powerful role here, not just seeing the outcome but embodying the version of yourself who already exists in that reality. Imagine the confidence, the joy, and the peace flowing through you. Feel it as though it is already real. The more sensory, detailed, and emotional your imagination, the more effectively it rewires your subconscious mind. Affirmations, when used correctly, can reinforce this process. However, they must be rooted in the identity you wish to embody, not in wishful thinking. Saying, "I am abundant," works best when you feel abundance within, rather than saying it as a desperate attempt to manifest it externally. The emotional resonance behind the words communicates to your subconscious mind, helping it accept the new identity as your truth. Consistency is key. Small, daily practices compound over time, gradually shifting your vibrational frequency and your perception of self. Journaling is another transformative tool for correct identification. When you write from the perspective of your aligned self, you are sending a clear signal to your subconscious mind about who you are becoming. Describe your day as if you are already living your desired reality. Write about your emotions, achievements, relationships, and experiences as if they are already present. Over time, this practice helps dissolve old identifications and reinforces the new, aligned self. The written word acts as a bridge between conscious intention and subconscious belief. Emotional alignment is perhaps the most powerful aspect of correct identification. Your emotions are the immediate feedback system indicating whether you are in resonance with your desired reality. When you feel joy, peace, gratitude, and excitement, you are vibrationally aligned. When you feel fear, doubt, or frustration, you are out of alignment. Correct identification is not about suppressing negative emotions. It's about consciously shifting your focus and energy toward the identity that resonates with your desires. Learn to notice emotional cues, pause, and intentionally redirect your energy to the version of yourself who is already manifesting effortlessly. Another key element is embodiment. Identification is not merely a mental exercise, it is a full-body, full-sense experience. How you carry yourself, the tone of your voice, your posture, and your habitual behaviors all communicate who you are being. Small actions, when aligned with your desired identity, send powerful signals to your subconscious mind, reinforcing the new version of yourself. Walk, speak, and act as if you already live the life you desire. Embodiment bridges the gap between imagination and reality, turning abstract thoughts into lived experience. Consistency and patience are essential. Transformation rarely happens overnight because misaligned identifications have been reinforced over years. Yet, each conscious choice, each moment of alignment, creates ripples that gradually reshape your inner world and, subsequently, your outer reality. Celebrate small victories, shifts in perception, subtle changes in feeling, new opportunities appearing, and recognize them as evidence that your new identity is taking root. The more you nurture it, the stronger it grows, until the old patterns no longer dominate. Finally, trust the process. Correct identification requires surrender to the flow of life while remaining fully aware of your internal alignment. It's not about forcing results or controlling outcomes, but about consistently tuning your inner frequency to match your highest self. When you combine awareness, choice, visualization, affirmation, emotional alignment, embodiment, and patience, manifestation becomes natural, effortless, and deeply fulfilling. You move from chasing outcomes to embodying the reality you wish to experience, and the universe responds in kind. The art of correct identification transforms manifestation from a series of techniques into a lifestyle, a state of being. Once mastered, it allows you to navigate life with confidence, ease, and clarity. You no longer need to struggle with doubt or impatience. Your external reality begins to mirror the vibrational truth of your internal state. Every thought, feeling, and action flows from the identity of the self who is already abundant, already capable, and already free. As we draw this journey to a close, it's important to pause and reflect on the deeper truth we've uncovered. Manifestation has never been about trying harder or doing more. It has always been about who you are being in the present moment. Your reality is not a distant prize or a goal to chase. It is a mirror reflecting your inner state. When you understand that every thought, feeling, and identification shapes the world around you, you realize the immense power that has always been within your grasp. Manifestation begins with awareness. Becoming conscious of your current self-identifications, the stories, beliefs, and emotions that have guided your life, creates the first ripple of transformation. By observing without judgment, you shine light on the subtle patterns that have kept you stuck. This awareness allows you to see the distinction between the old self, who identifies with fear, limitation, and lack, and the new self, who vibrates in alignment with abundance, joy, and freedom. Recognition alone initiates change, for what you observe consciously begins to shift naturally. From this awareness comes choice. You have the power to deliberately choose the identity you wish to embody. You can step into the version of yourself who already lives the life you desire. This is not a hypothetical future self, but a present reality, experienced in the feelings, thoughts, and actions of your daily life. When you align with this identity, even in small moments, the universe responds with perfect harmony. Opportunities, insights, and synchronicities appear, not by chance, but as a direct reflection of your internal alignment. Correct identification is a practice of integration. Visualization, affirmation, journaling, and embodiment are tools to help you consistently reinforce the self that is aligned with your desires. Each practice strengthens the neural pathways in your brain and rewires your subconscious, creating a vibrational match for your intentions. Emotions serve as your compass. Joy, peace, and excitement confirm alignment, while frustration and doubt signal misalignment. Learning to read and respond to these emotional cues is the key to staying on the path of effortless manifestation. Patience and consistency are essential companions on this journey. Transformation rarely happens overnight, but every moment of conscious alignment creates ripples that expand outward, gradually reshaping your reality. Celebrate small shifts, the subtle changes in thought, feeling, or circumstance, as evidence that your new identity is taking root. The universe honors the consistent vibration of your being, not the intensity of your effort or the speed of your results. By nurturing your identity patiently, you allow the manifestation process to unfold naturally and gracefully. Ultimately, the shift from misidentification to correct identification is empowering. It moves you from a state of struggle to a state of mastery. You realize that you are not at the mercy of circumstances, other people, or external events. You are the creator of your experience, capable of deliberately tuning your inner self to resonate with your highest desires. Once this understanding is fully embraced, manifestation becomes effortless, natural, and deeply fulfilling. As you step forward from here, hold this truth gently but firmly. Your reality is a reflection of who you are being. The version of yourself that embodies abundance, love, and freedom is not distant. It exists now, waiting to be recognized and embraced. Begin to notice your thoughts, emotions, and actions. Align them with the self who already has, who already knows, and who already experiences what you wish to manifest. And as you do, watch how the world begins to mirror back the vibrational truth of your new identity. Your journey has begun, not with action, not with effort, but with the conscious choice of who you are being. Step into your power. Align with your highest self. And allow the universe to respond perfectly and effortlessly to the vibrational frequency of your truest identity. Manifestation is not a distant dream. It is your present reality waiting to be lived.